My stepdaughter mocked me in front of everyone, saying I was the family failure at our family reunion dinner. I let her enjoy the attention until I stood up and announced I'd just bought out the company he worked for and fired him on the spot. What happened next was rather unbelievable. I will tell you everything. First, let me quickly thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout out in our next story. Today's special shout out goes to Jane Gray from New York. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's go deeper into the story. My name is Mark. I'm 53 years old, and I've spent the last 11 years in a marriage that's been both my sanctuary and my greatest test of endurance. I met Linda at a conference in Chicago. She was sharp, funny, gracious. Exactly the kind of woman who made you forget your own loneliness. We clicked. She was divorced, I was widowed. She had a daughter from her first marriage, Ashley. And while Linda warned me that Ashley could be a little territorial, I chalked it up to the usual growing pains of blending families. I was wrong. From the very beginning, Ashley saw me not as a new chapter in her mother's life, but as an intrusion, a threat. A man who didn't fit the script she'd written for her world, no matter how well I treated her mother or how quietly I carried myself around her scorn. Ashley was 20 when I married Linda, already out of the house, working part-time at a fashion boutique and full-time on curating an online life that screamed privilege and perfection. She had her father's money, her mother's beauty, and a self-assuredness that didn't leave much room for humility. To her, I was nothing more than the tech guy her mom settled for. I didn't drive a foreign car, didn't summer in Aspen, didn't play golf or quote luxury designers. I built my business from a second-hand desk in a one-bedroom apartment. No investors, no shortcuts, just time, failure, and a stubborn refusal to quit. But that story didn't matter to Ashley. She wasn't interested in substance, only status. Over the years, I stayed quiet. I endured the little digs at family dinners, the passive-aggressive comments about my nerd job, the eye rolls whenever I tried to give input on vacation plans, the way she'd lean into Linda and whisper just loud enough for me to hear, "He tries so hard." It wasn't just her words. It was her tone, her presence. Like I was a guest who'd overstayed his welcome. I tolerated it for Linda's sake. I told myself Ashley would grow out of it. But some people don't grow, they sharpen. This year's family reunion dinner was held at a high-end restaurant downtown, the kind where the wine list reads like a foreign language and the steak cost more than some people's rent. Linda picked it, of course. She wanted everything to be perfect. White linen, chandeliers, a long table seating 18, with Ashley seated right at the center, as always. I footed the bill, like I always did, quietly, without complaint. The irony wasn't lost on me. Me, the outsider, the man who paid to be disrespected. As we entered the private room, I felt that familiar flicker in my chest. Not fear. Not exactly. Just that tightening that comes when you know the jokes are coming and you've already decided to let them land. I took my seat at the far end, 2 spots away from Linda and directly across from Ashley, who was already sipping a cocktail she hadn't paid for, smirking like she knew the script by heart. She didn't say hello. She never did. Dinner began like most others. Small talk about Ashley's latest brand deal, her new apartment in Los Angeles, her brief fling with some C-list producer. Everyone fawned over her. She ate it up. I listened. I sipped my drink. I made comments when it felt polite to do so, and nodded when it didn't. I glanced at Linda now and then, her face glowing with pride as her daughter performed for the table. And I felt, once again, like an audience member to a one-woman show I never auditioned for. But this time, something was different. I wasn't just enduring. I was waiting. Because what no one at that table knew, not Linda, not Ashley, not anyone in the family who had spent years brushing off her cruelty, was that 3 hours earlier, I had finalized the purchase of the very fashion marketing firm where Ashley had recently started a high-profile campaign management role. The acquisition had been in the works for 6 months. I hadn't known she worked there until 2 weeks ago, when her name popped up during a final employee audit. At first, I considered saying nothing. But then she called me Linda's charity project in front of her cousins at the bridal shower. And I realized something. I was done swallowing shame to keep other people comfortable. I had signed the documents that morning. My lawyer had sent the confirmation at 2:16 p.m., and I was no longer just the man Ashley mocked. I was her boss. Correction. I was her former boss. The decision to let her go wasn't made out of anger. It was clarity, a reckoning, a line finally drawn. As the appetizers arrived and the chatter around the table grew louder, I leaned back in my chair and let Ashley continue to dominate the conversation. Her voice cut through the air like a blade, laughing too loud, talking over her cousin, telling a story about her trip to Milan and how some people just don't get luxury. I watched her. I waited. And I smiled. The final act was coming. She just didn't know the curtain was about to fall. The shift always came right around the second round of drinks. That's when Ashley's voice would grow a little louder, her posture looser, her smiles wider and faker. She'd done this dance at every holiday dinner and birthday brunch for the last 10 years. Wait until the wine flowed, and then sink her teeth into me with a grin. A performance, really. Her stage was the dining room. Her audience? A room full of enablers who laughed when they should have spoken up, who glanced down at their plates like shame didn't belong to them. I knew the rhythm of it by heart. But this time, I wasn't the one walking into her trap. She stood with her wine glass, high heels clicking on the floor as she tapped a spoon gently against the side, calling for silence like she was toasting at her own wedding. The room hushed on command. Of course it did. Ashley knew how to hold a room. Especially one that never held her accountable. I just want to take a moment, she began, voice syrupy, to appreciate everyone for coming together tonight. Family matters, right? She gave a wink toward her mother, who beamed back like she'd just witnessed a TED Talk. Especially in times like these, when we all have our own challenges. Career changes, life pivots, some of us still grinding away at our startups. The smile she cast me wasn't just condescending. It was surgical. Every eye turned to me. Some looked amused. Others looked away, embarrassed for me. Linda reached for her water glass but didn't say a word. Just sipped. Just waited. But seriously, Ashley continued, it takes courage to keep chasing a dream when it's clearly not catching up with you. So here's to perseverance. She raised her glass. To the backbone of this family. Mark, the man who taught us that success isn't everything. Sometimes it's just showing up. Cheers. The laughter wasn't loud. But it was sharp. Pity-laced chuckles. A couple of eyebrows raised, unsure if it was a joke or a jab. I didn't move. Didn't blink. I just smiled. The same smile I'd worn a dozen times before, when the knife went in, but I pretended it didn't draw blood. Except this time, the knife missed its mark. I stood slowly, glass in hand, napkin folded neatly beside my untouched plate. The room quieted again. I rarely spoke during these gatherings, and when I did, it was usually brief and polite. But tonight, I had something worth saying. Thank you, Ashley, I said calmly. You've always had such a way with words. She bowed slightly, basking in the mock applause of her own ego. I try, she said. I stepped forward, just slightly, enough to close the distance between the head and foot of the table. It's true what you said about perseverance, about showing up. But there's something else I think we should toast to. Ashley raised an eyebrow. Oh. I held her gaze, never breaking. To new beginnings. A murmur ran through the table. Ashley tilted her head, confused. Okay, that's vague. Let me be more specific, I said. As of this morning, I finalized an acquisition through one of my holding companies. A boutique marketing firm. You know it well. She frowned, visibly annoyed now. Which one? Oakwell and Mason. She blinked. Twice. That's where I work. I know, I said, voice smooth. Or rather, where you used to work. Her glass hovered midair, fingers stiffening around the stem. What? I turned to Linda. I didn't bring this up before because I didn't want to make the dinner about business. But Ashley's toast reminded me. Sometimes, things just align. Someone gasped. Maybe her aunt, maybe her cousin's wife. Ashley's face drained of color. You're joking. I took a folded envelope from my inside jacket pocket and placed it gently in front of her plate. Termination letter. Effective immediately. HR will be in touch about the exit process and severance. No, you can't just, this is a family dinner. She hissed, eyes wild. You made it about me, I said. I'm just giving it a proper ending. She stood, unsteady. Mom, she cried. He can't do this. Linda looked stunned, frozen. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I can, I said, stepping back. And I just did. Then I walked. Calm. Steady. Past stunned faces and awkward silence, past waitstaff frozen in the doorway. I didn't stop. I didn't turn. The air behind me buzzed with disbelief and shattered ego, and still, I walked. My driver was already outside. Door open. Engine running. As I climbed in, I heard Ashley's voice echo faintly down the hall. High-pitched, panicked, trying to reclaim control. But control wasn't hers anymore. I gave it to her one last time, and then I took it back. There was a stillness in the back seat of that car, the kind that wraps around you like armor after battle. The leather seat felt colder than usual against my spine, and the soft hum of the engine underscored the gravity of what had just happened. I didn't check my phone. I didn't need to. I could already picture it. Ashley still standing at the head of the table, hand shaking, voice cracking, trying to rewrite the scene in real time. Maybe someone tried to comfort her. Maybe Linda finally found her voice. But it didn't matter. The curtain had closed. The performance was over. For once, I'd been the one holding the final line. The ride home felt surreal. The city lights blurred past the window like silent witnesses, indifferent to the chaos I'd left behind. My driver, an older man named Harold, didn't speak. He never did unless I invited it, and tonight, I didn't. He gave me one quick glance in the rearview mirror, more curiosity than concern, and returned his eyes to the road. That small glance grounded me. This wasn't a movie. It wasn't some dramatic finale. It was a man, quietly reclaiming his space in a family that had never seen him as anything more than a footnote. The next morning, I was at the office by 6:45. I hadn't slept much, but I didn't need rest. I needed momentum. My assistant, Carla, met me with a raised brow and a coffee already in hand. "You've got 3 voicemails," she said, sliding the phone toward me. "All from an Ashley Campbell. Want me to block her?" I stared at the screen, watching her name flicker under the red urgent label. "No," I said. "Let them come through. But I won't be calling her back." The truth was, the decision to let her go wasn't about vengeance. It never had been. It was about clarity. I'd spent too long carrying her venom in silence. Her comments, her entitlement, her thinly veiled jabs about how real success doesn't look like spreadsheets and servers. She had no idea what it took to build something from scratch. No idea what it meant to risk everything. Ashley lived in a world of curated aesthetics and unearned applause. She thought being followed meant being admired. Thought being loud meant being right. But in the business world, the real world, none of that mattered. What mattered was ownership, substance, and timing. The acquisition had started innocently enough. My firm had been exploring boutique agencies to diversify our client portfolio. Oakwell and Mason came up in a short list. Good reputation, weak financials, poor leadership. It was a perfect target. I didn't know Ashley worked there until 2 weeks before the deal closed, when I reviewed the personnel list and saw her name listed under brand strategy. I'd stared at it for a full minute, blinking, rereading it just to be sure. That moment, seeing her name attached to something I would soon own, wasn't satisfying. Not right away. It was complicated. I didn't want to mix business and family. But the more I sat with it, the more I remembered. Every dig, every insult, every time she pulled Linda away from me with her dramatics. Every time she used me for a connection, a dinner, a favor, and then turned around and mocked me for being the boring stepdad with the software company. And slowly, clarity emerged from the fog. Not revenge, accountability. The morning the papers were signed, I had HR draft the termination letter. Not personal. Just a name in a file, just like any other poorly performing employee let go during a restructuring. It wasn't until Ashley stood at that dinner table, smug and radiant, publicly dragging me yet again, that I realized the moment had arrived. I hadn't walked into that restaurant planning to fire her on the spot. But when she stood there, so sure of herself, so proud of the way she belittled me in front of everyone I'd supported for years, I knew it was time. Later that afternoon, she came. Not through the front doors like a professional. She stormed through the executive elevator with the fire of a woman who had never been told no in her entire life. Carla called me twice before I buzzed her in. Ashley marched into my office, red-faced, dressed down from the dinner but still manicured and defiant. She slammed the envelope I'd given her on the table like it had burned her skin. "You think this is funny?" She spat. "Firing me in front of my entire family?" I didn't move. "You brought my name up first." "That was a joke," she snapped. "People laughed." "They laughed at me. Not with me. You humiliated me." "No, Ashley," I said, standing. "I exposed you. You've had free rein to degrade me in every room, every dinner, every moment you thought you were above me. You've called me a failure for years. All I did was show you who actually holds the cards." She blinked, thrown by my calm. "You could have talked to me privately, like an adult." I nodded. "And how many times did you treat me like an adult? Like a person?" She didn't answer. She stared. And for the first time, I saw it fear. Not of me, but of what it meant to face a consequence she couldn't spin into sympathy. "I'm going to tell Mom everything," she said finally, her voice trembling with rage. She was sitting right there, I said. I think she got the message. Ashley turned and left without another word, her heels clicking down the hallway with less certainty than usual. The office stayed quiet after she left, but something in the air had shifted. Not tension, not aftermath. Balance. That night, I returned home to silence. Linda wasn't back. My phone stayed quiet. But I wasn't alone. For the first time in years, I wasn't sharing my home with resentment. Just space. And peace. The text started before I even made it home that night. First came one from Linda, short, clipped, obviously written in the heat of emotion. "What the hell did you do to Ashley?" I stared at it for a full minute before locking my phone and tossing it on the passenger seat. I knew what was waiting for me behind the screen. Guilt, outrage, the need to protect. Not mine, hers. Linda had always carried Ashley's fragility like it was a porcelain heirloom. No matter how many cracks appeared, she'd glue them back together with excuses and protect the illusion that her daughter was simply misunderstood. But now the cracks were gaping, and I wasn't the one patching them up anymore. By the time I got through the door, the house already felt different. Linda wasn't there. She hadn't said she'd be gone, hadn't left a note or even a voicemail. Just absence. It was like the entire house exhaled without her. The silence wasn't peaceful this time. It was electric, charged with the tension of something waiting to unravel. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of wine, and stood in the same spot where, 3 days earlier, I'd cleaned lipstick-stained glasses after the reunion dinner. Ashley's glass had been the only one left half full. She never finished anything. That night, I didn't sleep much. I checked my email around 2 a.m. Scrolling past 3 more messages from Linda and one surprisingly well-written essay from Ashley, CCing half the family. She framed her termination as an act of male dominance, suggested I was threatened by powerful women, and referred to me as a bitter, insecure man who resented the success of the next generation. She had a flair for melodrama. I'll give her that. What really stuck with me wasn't what she wrote, but how familiar the tone was. It was the same Ashley I'd known for years. Grandiose, accusatory, unshakably convinced that consequences were cruelty. It wasn't even surprising anymore. Just sad. The real fallout came the next morning. Linda came home. She walked in around 8:30, dressed for work, but clearly not going in. She didn't take off her coat, didn't set down her bag. She just stood at the kitchen entrance and stared at me. "I read the email," she said flatly. "I figured. She's devastated, Mark." I sipped my coffee, letting the heat remind me I was still grounded. "So am I." She shook her head slowly, eyes narrowing. "Why would you humiliate her like that? In front of everyone? You mean the same way she humiliated me for the last 10 years? That was different." "No, it wasn't," I said, voice low but firm. "You laugh with her, Linda. You sat next to her and let her tear me down, year after year, and you laughed." She blinked, stunned. Maybe she hadn't expected me to say it out loud. Maybe she thought I hadn't noticed. "You think I didn't feel it?" I asked. Every time she called me a tech guy like I was some IT intern? Every time she asked how my little business was doing, like I was running a lemonade stand? And every time she turned your love for her into ammunition? Her jaw tightened. "She's my daughter. And I'm your husband," I said. "But you never defended me." The room went quiet. She set her bag on the table slowly, deliberately, like she was trying to buy time. I didn't want to make things worse, she said. They were already worse, I replied. You just refused to see it. We stood like that for a long moment. Two people who had shared a bed, a life, but somehow let a third person rewrite the rules. I saw the tears welling in her eyes before she looked away. She's spiraling, Mark, she whispered. She's saying things she can't take back. She's always said things she can't take back. The only difference is now they have consequences. That hit her hard. She turned her back to me, shoulders rigid. I could see her fighting herself, between the mother who needed to fix her daughter's world and the wife who had finally run out of excuses. She said you embarrassed her. That she'll never recover from this. She wasn't supposed to recover. She was supposed to learn. Linda spun around. So that's what this was? A lesson? No, I said. It was a boundary. That night, she didn't stay. She packed a small bag, just essentials, and said she was going to her sister's. Just for a few days, she said. I nodded. I didn't fight it. I watched her leave like someone watches a storm pass through a town that's already been rebuilt too many times. You don't try to stop it. You just make sure the roof doesn't cave in. After she left, I sat in the living room and opened my laptop. I clicked through old photos. Vacations, holidays, the posed smiles. So many images of me standing just out of frame. Not by accident, just excluded. Over time, even I'd started cropping myself out emotionally, shrinking to make room for their comfort. Not anymore. That night, Lily texted me. She'd been quiet since the dinner, but her message was simple. Lily, she had it coming. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Sometimes the smallest voices are the loudest in the dark. And sometimes, those voices remind you why you finally stopped playing nice. She came back the following Thursday. I had just finished reviewing a proposal for a partnership deal with a West Coast tech distributor when Carla buzzed through. Her voice was unusually tight. Ashley Campbell is here. No appointment. Says it's urgent. I stared at the blinking light on the intercom, then glanced at the clock. 11:38 a.m. Almost lunchtime. The exact hour Ashley used to disappear from her desk back when she worked here, citing brand meetings that always seemed to involve bottomless brunches. I pressed the button. Send her up. I stood when she entered. She was dressed for impact. Black heels, a blazer too sharp for the season, her hair pulled back so tightly it made her look years older. She walked in like she was still somebody important, even as her eyes betrayed her. A flicker of uncertainty, of desperation trying hard to look like rage. I want my job back, she said before the door even closed. I didn't sit down. I didn't offer her a seat. I just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching her fight to hold on to whatever script she'd rehearsed in her car. Her voice was strong, but her foundation was cracked. That much was clear. I'm not here to argue, she continued. I've spoken with an attorney. There's nothing illegal about what you did, but it was personal. You retaliated. No, I said. I finally responded. She rolled her eyes. Semantics. No, I said again slower. Reality. Ashley paced to the window, arms crossed, staring out at the skyline like she owned it. You fired me to humiliate me. To make some pathetic power move in front of people who already think you're a joke. My jaw tensed, but I didn't react. She was throwing sparks, hoping for gasoline. I fired you, I said, because I'm no longer willing to protect someone who disrespects me while living off the reputation of others. You didn't build anything at Oakwell. You coasted, and everyone knew it. She turned sharply. I had the highest performing client account in Q1, which was reassigned to you after someone else left. I countered, and it was mismanaged within 6 weeks. 3 complaints, 2 lost leads. Don't confuse opportunity with achievement. Her mouth opened, then closed. I'd hit the vein. Her pride was all surface. Once punctured, there was nothing underneath but air. I don't care about the severance, she said, voice quieter now. But you embarrass me in front of everyone. My friends, my family, my mother, your mother, I said, cutting in, has been defending you for so long she doesn't even know what accountability looks like anymore. I didn't embarrass you. You embarrassed yourself. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She flinched, but quickly masked it. So what now? You win? You get to play king of the castle while mom cries in her sister's guest room, and I get iced out by every client in the city. This isn't about winning, I said. It's about ending a cycle. She laughed bitterly. God, you're so smug. You think you're noble because you waited 10 years to finally grow a spine. I took a slow breath, then moved around to my chair. I finally sat, folding my hands in front of me. No. I think I'm justified because I've endured 10 years of being treated like a placeholder in my own marriage. I let your contempt slide so Linda wouldn't feel pulled between us. I let you mock me in front of people I fed and supported. I paid for your rent when your influencer check bounced, and I didn't say a word. I watched you lie to your mother, lie to your employers, lie to yourself. And I still showed up. That wasn't spineless. That was love. She didn't speak. Her eyes were wet now, not from sorrow, but from the sting of being seen clearly for the first time. I gave you more chances than you deserved, I said. And still, you used every one of them to hurt me. Silence. I don't want your apology, I added. And I don't need your respect. I just want space. Permanent space. She moved toward the door, slower now. So that's it? You're done being in this family? No, I said. I'm done being the one they sacrifice. She didn't look back as she left. That night, Linda came home. Her hair was flat from rain. Her eyes puffy from a long week of excuses she could no longer sell. She came to see me, I said as she walked in. I know, Linda replied. She told me everything. I didn't speak. I waited. I'm not angry anymore, she added. I'm just tired. Me too. She dropped her bag at the foot of the couch and stared at me for a long time. I don't know if we can come back from this. I'm not sure either. She sat down slowly. I think we loved each other in very different ways. I know we did. And I think I let her convince me that love means always defending her, even when she was wrong. She did, I said gently. Another long silence. But this one wasn't angry. Just hollow. I'm going to stay at Cheryl's for a while longer, she said. I nodded. That's probably best. And when she left, I didn't stop her. Because sometimes love is real. But respect is the part that keeps it alive. And without it, even love dies quietly. I kept the house clean after she left. Not obsessively. Not like I was waiting for her return. Just enough to maintain the illusion that something could still be held together, even if the people inside it had come apart. The guest room stayed empty. Her favorite mug stayed in the cabinet. I didn't move anything. I didn't burn photographs or box up reminders. But I didn't reach out either. Not to her. Not to Ashley. Not even to the well-meaning cousins and siblings who'd started sending cautiously worded texts like, "Let me know if you need anything." I didn't need anything. I needed nothing. For once, silence was not something I had to endure. It was something I chose. In the mornings, I drank my coffee in the kitchen with the light pouring through the windows just the way she always loved. Funny how quiet beauty can exist right next to grief. I stopped checking Ashley's social media after that week she went on a tirade, resharing articles about corporate abuse and toxic stepfathers, complete with perfectly filtered selfies and vague captions. Her comments were filled with sympathizers, people she'd never met, strangers who didn't know the first thing about dignity, let alone what it costs to preserve it. I didn't reply. I didn't fight her narrative. Let her keep it. It was all she ever owned outright. I got a voicemail from Linda one night just after 9. I let it go to message. I didn't have the emotional bandwidth for another half apology or a gentle reframe of everything I'd lived through. Linda, voicemail, I'm not calling to fight. I just wanted you to know that I told her she couldn't move back in with me until she apologized. I know that doesn't fix anything, but it's the first time I've said no to her. I thought you should hear it from me, not through someone else. I'm still figuring things out. Call me if you want. Or don't. I get it now. I listened to it 3 times. Not because it comforted me, but because it startled me. Linda had finally said no. To Ashley. And in that one decision, I saw the shadow of the woman I'd fallen in love with, the one who once told me that boundaries were brave, even when they broke hearts. Maybe she just needed to remember her own words. Still, I didn't call her back. Not yet. Instead, I spent the weekend clearing out the home office, my space, the one room Ashley never set foot in, the one sanctuary I'd carved for myself in a house where I'd always been a visitor. I donated boxes of old tech parts, rearranged the shelves, hung up the framed newspaper article from 10 years ago when I sold my first software product. That article had been in a drawer for too long. For years, I convinced myself it wasn't something to brag about, that it would just invite more jabs from Ashley, that it would seem like I was trying too hard to prove something. But now, I didn't need to prove anything. One evening, Lily dropped by unannounced. She brought over a pie store-bought, still cold in the plastic shell, but I didn't care. It was kindness, and it was real. "I hope you don't mind," she said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "Of course not," I said. "Come in." She sat across from me at the kitchen table, legs tucked under herself, like she was a teenager again. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said. "Not for what happened with Ashley. That's complicated. But for showing me that being quiet doesn't mean being weak." I nodded, grateful but unsure what to say. "She made me feel small too," Lily added, barely above a whisper. "For years. And no one ever told her to stop. You were the first." We didn't talk much after that. We ate the pie in silence. It was terrible, but neither of us said so. When she left, she hugged me tight, tighter than I expected. And for a moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Seen. That night, I stepped outside onto the back porch, coffee in hand, even though it was far too late for caffeine. The wind carried the last of the summer warmth, and somewhere in the distance, someone was laughing. Not mockingly, just human joy, floating in the air like it belonged. I sat down, stretched out my legs, and closed my eyes. Ashley might never apologize. Linda might never come home. But I had reclaimed something neither of them could take back, my voice. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that posts on social media or shows up in headlines. The quiet kind. The kind that stands up, even when it shakes. The kind that says, enough. And for the first time in a very long time, that voice sounded just like peace. When silence becomes survival, speaking up can feel like betrayal. But sometimes, it's the most loyal thing you can do for yourself. Have you ever drawn a boundary that cost you a relationship, but gave you back your self-worth? Share your story in the comments. Let someone else know they're not alone. Because silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes, it's the sound of healing. See you soon in the next story.